The deep tunnels undermining Station 7 smelled of sweat and broken dreams. Captain Lee Dae-ho pressed his back against the cold rock wall and checked his watch. 3 hours until the shift change. 3 hours until they would strike back at their alien masters. For 47 years, the Dominion Empire had ruled over humanity. Their ships had come from the stars when Dae-ho was just a boy, promising peace and prosperity. Instead, they brought chains. Now every human world served the Empire. Every human life belonged to Emperor Vorthak. Dae-ho looked around at his small team huddled in the tunnel. Park Soo-jin sat cross-legged, carefully packing explosives into a mining charge. Her steady hands never shook, even when the alien overseers watched. Kim Tae-woo worked on a stolen communication device trying to boost its signal range. Choi Eun-ji organized medical supplies in her pack, preparing for the wounded they might have to treat. These three people were his whole world now. His family. His hope. "The charges are ready," Soo-jin whispered. Her voice barely carried in the narrow space. 6 minutes to full detonation once I trigger them." "Good," Dae-ho said. "Tae-woo, what about the signal?" The young man looked up from his work. "I can reach the other cells across the colony, maybe even the mining platforms in orbit if we get lucky." Dae-ho nodded. Tonight they would hit the Dominion where it hurt most. The orbital processing station took raw materials from 12 different mining worlds and turned them into weapons for the Empire. Without it, Emperor Vorthak would lose millions of credits in production. More importantly, it would show other humans that the Empire could be hurt. "Remember," Dae-ho said, looking each of them in the eye, "we go in fast and quiet. Plant the charges on the main support columns. Get out before anyone knows we were there." "What if we run into guards?" Hyun-ji asked. "We avoid them if we can. If we cannot..." Dae-ho touched the stolen energy weapon at his belt. "We do what we must." They climbed through maintenance shafts and forgotten corridors. The Empire had built their facilities on top of the old human mining complex, never bothering to seal off the deeper levels. They thought humans were too stupid to use those passages for anything dangerous. That was their first mistake. The processing station hummed with activity, even at night. Automated systems sorted and refined the raw ore, while skeleton crews of both humans and aliens monitored the equipment. Red lights bathed everything in an eerie glow. Dae-ho's team split up as planned. Each person had 2 charges to plant and 10 minutes to get clear. Simple, clean, safe, but nothing ever went according to plan. Soo-jin was placing her second charge when the light suddenly flashed white. Emergency power. Someone had triggered an alarm somewhere in the facility. Through the walls they could hear alien voices shouting orders in the harsh language of the Dominion. "Abort mission," Dae-ho spoke into his comm unit. "Get out now." "Negative," Soo-jin's voice crackled back. "Charges are armed but not set. Give me 30 seconds. "We don't have 30 seconds. Then leave without me." Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Dae-ho counted at least 6 sets of boots, probably a full squad of Dominion soldiers. He drew his weapon and waited. The door burst open. 3 alien soldiers rushed in, their insect-like faces hidden behind combat masks. Dae-ho fired twice, dropping the first one. The second soldier's return shot burned past his ear, close enough to singe his hair. Down the corridor he could hear more fighting. Tae-woo was shouting something about being surrounded. Yoon-ji was calling for backup that would never come. "Charges set," Soo-jin announced. 4 minutes to detonation. 4 minutes to get clear of a station that would become a cloud of debris. 4 minutes to escape through corridors now filled with enemy soldiers. Dae-ho grabbed a fallen soldier's rifle and ran toward the sound of fighting. He found Tae-woo pinned down behind an overturned cargo container, energy bolts burning the air around him. "This way," Dae-ho called, laying down covering fire. They ran through the station like men possessed. Behind them, alarms wailed, and soldiers gave chase. Ahead of them, their only chance of survival waited in the form of a maintenance shaft that led back to the mining tunnels. They found Yoon-ji helping Soo-jin climb into the shaft. Blood ran down Soo-jin's left arm where an energy bolt had grazed her. "How long?" Dae-ho asked. 2 minutes, Sujin gasped. They crawled through the shaft, as fast as they could. The metal walls seemed to press in around them. Behind them, they could hear soldiers trying to force their way into the narrow passage. They emerged into the mining tunnels, just as the first explosion shook the station above. Then another. Then 6 more in rapid succession. The ground bucked under their feet. Dust and debris rained from the tunnel ceiling. Through the rock, they could hear the groaning sound of massive structures collapsing. "Did we get it?" Taewoo asked. Daeho helped pull the others deeper into the tunnels, away from the devastation above. They would have to wait until morning to know for sure. When dawn came, it brought news beyond their wildest hopes. The processing station was completely destroyed. But more than that, they had unknowingly killed someone very important. Prince Vextar, nephew to Emperor Vorthek himself, had been conducting a surprise inspection when the charges went off. Within hours, the Emperor's death fleet arrived at Kepler 442b. 12 massive warships took position around the planet. Each one could have wiped out the entire colony with a single bombardment. Instead, Emperor Vorthak wanted something else. He wanted the rebels who had killed his nephew. Daeho stood in the colony's central square with 500 other humans. The Emperor's soldiers had forced everyone out of their homes at gunpoint. Overhead, shuttles circled like mechanical vultures. Emperor Vorthak's ship landed in the center of the square. The alien ruler emerged, tall and terrible in his black armor. His forearms moved independently as he gestured, and his voice carried clearly across the crowd when he spoke. "Humans of this pathetic world," the Emperor said. "Yesterday you murdered a member of my family. Today you will pay the price for your defiance." Elder Yoon Hai-sung stepped forward from the crowd. The old man had led their colony since before the invasion. His hair was white now, but his back was still straight. "Your Majesty," Yoon said, his voice steady. "We are simple miners. We know nothing of any murder. Do not lie to me, old man." The Emperor's eyes glowed red in his alien face. "I know the rebels who destroyed my station came from this colony. Give them to me, and I might show mercy to the rest of you." Daeho felt his heart hammering in his chest. He could step forward right now, confess, save everyone else. But before he could move, Elder Yoon spoke again. "We will not betray our own people," the old man said. "If you want justice, you will have to take it from all of us." Murmurs of agreement rose from the crowd. Men and women who had lived in fear for decades suddenly stood taller. Children moved, closer to their parents, but none of them ran. Emperor Vorthak's laugh was like grinding metal. "Very well," he said. "If you will not give me the guilty, then you will all share their punishment." His soldiers moved through the crowd, selecting people at random, men, women, children, elderly. It did not matter. 30 people in total. Among them was Daeho's little sister, Song Min-ah. She taught the colony children in the small school they had built. Her smile could light up the darkest tunnel. They forced the 30 to kneel in the center of the square. "Let this be a lesson," Emperor Vorthak announced, "to any who would defy the Dominion Empire." The energy weapons fired in unison. 30 people died in the dirt of their own world while their families watched. The Emperor and his soldiers departed without another word, leaving the bodies where they fell and the survivors to bury their dead. Daeho knelt beside his sister's body and wept. Around him, the entire colony mourned. They had struck back at their oppressors and paid a terrible price. But as the sun set on that day of blood and tears, something else was happening. In tunnels and hidden rooms across the colony, people were talking. The message was spreading to other worlds through secret channels. The story of 30 innocent people who died because humans dared to fight back. Emperor Vorthak thought he had crushed their spirit. Instead, he had lit a fire that would spread across the galaxy. The message traveled faster than any ship in the Dominion fleet. On Proxima Station, factory worker Jiang Wubin heard about the 30 martyrs while assembling weapons for the Empire. His hands trembled as he listened to the underground broadcast through his hidden earpiece. 30 innocent people, shot down like animals for the crime of being human. That night, Wu Bin did something he had never done before. He sabotaged his work. It was small at first. A loose bolt here, a misaligned circuit there. Nothing that would be noticed immediately. But when those weapons reached the battlefield, they would fail at the worst possible moment. Within a week, Wu Bin had recruited 6 other workers. They called themselves the Broken Gears, and they turned sabotage into an art form. On the agricultural world of New Eden, farmer Kang So-young tended to crops that fed 3 Dominion military bases. She had always hated the work, but it kept her family alive. When news of Kepler 442b reached her, something inside her snapped. So-young knew plants better than anyone. She knew which ones looked healthy, but carried death in their roots. She began mixing toxic seeds into the food shipments, not enough to kill immediately, but enough to make the alien soldiers sick and weak. Her neighbor, Park Jun-ho, joined her after his son was beaten by Dominion guards for walking too slowly. Soon, every farm in their district was growing poison, alongside grain. The rebellion spread like wildfire across human settlements throughout the galaxy. On the core world of Zentara Prime, diplomat Han Ji-won worked in the Dominion's foreign ministry. For 15 years, she had smiled and bowed to alien officials who treated her like a pet. She translated documents, arranged meetings, and helped the Empire maintain its grip on human worlds. The massacre changed everything. Ji-won began copying classified documents, troop movements, supply schedules, weaknesses in planetary defenses. She passed the information through a network of servants and clerks that the Dominion had never considered a threat. After all, who would suspect the humans who cleaned their floors and served their meals? Back on Kepler 442b, Captain Lee Dae-ho had stopped sleeping. For 2 weeks since the massacre, he had worked around the clock, planning, preparing, building something that could strike back at the Empire with real force. His team had grown. Kim Tae-woo had recruited his cousin, a shuttle pilot named Kim Ho-jin. Choi Yoon-ji brought in her brother Won-sik, who worked in the colony's communications center. Even injured, Park Soo-jin trained new volunteers in the art of making things explode. But Dae-ho wanted more than sabotage. He wanted blood. The supply convoy arrives in 3 days, he told his expanded team. They met in the tunnels where it all began, but now 20 people crowded the small space. 12 cargo ships with minimal escort. They think we are broken, after what happened in the square. They are wrong, Elder Yoon Hae-sung said quietly. The old man had aged years in the past weeks, but his eyes burned with cold fury. What do you need? A distraction, Dae-ho said. Something big enough to pull their security away from the ships. Leave that to me, Yoon said. The plan was dangerous, probably suicidal. But after watching 30 innocent people die, none of them cared about safety anymore. The distraction came at dawn on the day of the convoy's arrival. A massive mining charge exploded in the old refinery, sending a pillar of fire into the sky. Dominion soldiers rushed to contain the blaze, thinking it was an accident. They never saw Dae-ho's team approaching the landing field from the opposite direction. The cargo ships sat in neat rows, their hulls gleaming in the morning sun. Each one carried supplies for the Dominion garrison: food, ammunition, medicine, everything the aliens needed to keep humans under control. Soo-jin had outdone herself with the bombs. 12 charges, each one carefully designed to crack open the cargo holds without destroying everything inside. They needed those supplies for what came next. The explosions came 30 seconds apart, a rolling thunder that shook the ground. By the time the Dominion soldiers realized what was happening, the rebel team had already vanished back into the tunnels. But they took something with them: 5 crates of military-grade weapons, 2 cases of medical supplies, and most importantly, a Dominion communication array that Tae-woo had been eyeing for months. That night, human voices broadcast across 12 star systems. "This is Captain Lee Dae-ho of the Free Human Resistance," his message began. "Today we struck back at our oppressors. Tomorrow we strike again. To all humans listening, remember the 30 who died in our square. Remember their names. Remember their faces. and remember that their deaths will not be in vain. The message reached Dr. Lim Yu-jin on the research station orbiting Vega. She had been forced to work on weapons for the Dominion for 8 years, creating new ways for the Empire to kill its enemies. After hearing about the massacre, she began working on something different, something the Empire would never expect. Yu-jin knew that Dominion soldiers relied on their superior strength and reflexes. Their nervous systems worked faster than human ones, giving them an advantage in combat. But every advantage had a weakness. She began designing a weapon that would disrupt alien neural pathways, a device that would level the playing field between humans and their oppressors. It would take months to perfect, but she had time. The rebellion was just beginning. On the prison world of Gaia, where the Empire sent humans who caused too much trouble, the message sparked something incredible. Convict leader Oh Se-hun had been locked up for 10 years after trying to organize a strike. He knew every tunnel, every guard rotation, every weakness in the prison system. Within days of hearing Daeho's broadcast, Se-hun had united every human prisoner under a single banner. They called themselves the Broken Chains, and they began planning the largest prison break in galactic history. But the rebellion was not without cost. Emperor Vorthak was not blind to what was happening. His intelligence networks reported sabotage on dozens of worlds. His military commanders complained about equipment failures and sick soldiers. His administrators struggled with coordination as their communication systems suffered mysterious glitches. The alien ruler's response was swift and brutal. He ordered the destruction of 3 entire human settlements suspected of harboring rebels. Millions died in orbital bombardments that turned homes into glass craters. The message was clear. Defiance would be met with extinction. But for every human who died, 10 more joined the resistance. On the industrial world of Titan's Forge, the entire human workforce walked off their jobs after their overseer executed a child for dropping a tool. Production ground to a halt across 12 factories. On the trading hub of New Singapore, human merchants began losing shipments bound for Dominion worlds while mysteriously finding extra supplies for rebel cells. Even on Earth itself, now a polluted wasteland where the Empire dumped its industrial waste, old resistance networks began stirring back to life. Captain Daeho watched it all unfold from his hidden command center, deep beneath Kepler 442b. The stolen Dominion communication. Array let his team monitor broadcasts across half the galaxy. "Look at this," Taewoo said, pointing to signals coming from 17 different systems. "Rebel cells on every world. They are all using our symbol." The symbol was simple, but powerful. A crown wreathed in flames, representing the throne they intended to destroy. It appeared on walls, on broadcast signals, on the armor of dead Dominion soldiers. "My sister would be proud," Daeho said quietly. "All 30 of them would be proud," Elder Yoon added. "Their deaths lit a fire that spreads across the stars." But even as the rebellion grew, Daeho knew they needed more than sabotage and scattered strikes. They needed unity, organization, a way to coordinate their efforts across the vast distances between worlds. That was when Han Ji-won's intelligence proved most valuable. Hidden in her diplomatic reports was information about a secret Dominion facility on Vega Prime, a communication hub that coordinated military operations across the entire Empire. If they could capture or destroy it, the Dominion's ability to respond to the growing rebellion would be crippled. "It is heavily guarded," Ji-won's message warned. "Any attack would be suicide." Daeho studied the facility's layout on his stolen screens. Hundreds of soldiers, energy barriers, automated defenses. The kind of fortress that could hold off an army, but armies could be defeated. The Empire had proven that by conquering humanity in the first place. What the Dominion could not defeat was an idea. The idea that no being should kneel to another. The idea that freedom was worth any price. The idea that 30 innocent deaths could light a fire that would burn down an empire. "Signal all cells," Daeho ordered. "Tell them to prepare for the next phase." The flame that began on Kepler 442b was about to become an inferno. 6 months had passed since the massacre on Kepler 442b. and the rebellion had grown beyond anything Captain Lee Dae-ho could have imagined. What started as scattered cells of angry humans had become something much more dangerous. They called themselves the Phoenix Collective, named after the mythical bird that rose from its own ashes, just like humanity was rising from the ashes of slavery. Dae-ho stood in the central command room, built deep in the tunnels beneath the colony. Banks of stolen computers lined the walls, each one connected to rebel cells across 43 star systems. The room hummed with activity as operators coordinated strikes, supply runs, and intelligence gathering. Report from New Eden, Communications, Officer Kim Tae-woo announced. Kang So-young's poison shipments have put 2 entire Dominion battalions in medical facilities. Their combat effectiveness is down by 60%. Titan's Forge is requesting more explosive compounds. Added, his cousin Kim Ho-jin, who now coordinated supply shipments between worlds. The factory workers want to hit 3 more production lines. Dae-ho nodded, but his attention was focused on the holographic display in the center of the room. It showed the location of every known rebel cell, every Dominion stronghold, and every supply route in their sector of the galaxy. The rebellion had grown strong, but it was still scattered. 43 cells fighting 43 separate wars. What they needed was unity. A single operation that would prove humans could work together as one force. Have you decided? Asked Colonel Baek Jin-seo. The older man had arrived 2 weeks ago, rescued from a Dominion prison ship by Oh Se-hoon's convict army. Before the invasion, Jin-seo had been a general in Earth's military. Now he served as one of 3 strategic commanders for the Phoenix Collective. The third commander, Lee Hai-rim, studied financial reports at a nearby workstation. The former corporate executive had escaped from the core worlds after embezzling millions of credits from Dominion accounts. Her network of sympathetic merchants and traders kept the rebellion supplied with everything from food to starship fuel. Vega Prime, Dae-ho said finally. It has to be Vega Prime. The communication hub on Vega Prime was the nerve center of Dominion military operations. Every order, every troop movement, every strategic decision flowed through that facility. Han, Ji-won's intelligence had revealed something even more valuable than they first realized. The hub did not just coordinate communications. It contained the master database for the entire Dominion fleet. Ship locations, crew rosters, weakness assessments, even the personal files of high-ranking officers. If they could access that information, they could predict and counter every move the Empire made. The facility is a fortress, Colonel Jin-seo warned. 500 soldiers, energy shields, automated defense systems. Even if we got every rebel cell to attack at once, we would lose thousands of people. Then we do not attack from the outside, Dae-ho said. We attack from within. Dr. Lim Yu-jin looked up from her workstation, where she had been perfecting her neural disruptor weapons. The virus is ready, she announced. If we can get it into their main computer system, it will spread through the entire Dominion network within hours. Tae-woo had spent months developing the virus with Yu-jin's help. It was designed to look like a routine system update while actually corrupting communication protocols across the Empire. Dominion commanders would find themselves unable to coordinate their forces just when they needed it most. The problem is, Delivery Hai-rim said, reviewing the facility security protocols. We need someone inside the building to physically connect to their main servers. I can do it, volunteered Park Won-sik, Yoon-ji's brother. The young man had become an expert at infiltrating Dominion facilities. Give me a maintenance uniform and a fake work order. I can get inside. It is a suicide mission, Colonel Jin-seo stated bluntly. Even if you successfully plant the virus, you will never make it out alive. Won-sik shrugged. My sister died in the tunnels last month during the raid on Mining Station 3. My parents died in the original invasion. I have nothing left except the chance to hurt the Empire. Dae-ho felt the familiar weight of command settle on his shoulders. Every operation cost lives. Every victory came with a price paid in human blood. But the alternative was accepting slavery forever. You will not go alone, he decided. We hit Vega Prime as part of a coordinated strike across 17 systems. While you plant the virus, Every other cell will attack their local target simultaneously. The Dominion will be too busy responding to multiple crises to focus their full attention on you. The plan they developed was called Operation Wildfire, and it was the most ambitious campaign in the rebellion's history. On the appointed day, the attacks began at exactly the same time across 17 star systems. On Proxima Station, Jiang Wubin and his broken gears detonated explosives in the main weapons factory, destroying 6 months of production in a single blast. On New Eden, Kang So-young led her farmers in an assault on the Dominion Food Distribution Center, poisoning supplies destined for military bases across 3 sectors. On Titan's Forge, the entire human workforce seized control of the orbital shipyards, turning the Empire's own construction facilities against them. On the prison world of Gaia, Oh-Se-hun's broken chains launched their long-planned breakout, freeing 15,000 human prisoners and capturing a Dominion fleet base in the process, and, on 40 other worlds, similar strikes hit the Empire where it was most vulnerable. The coordinated assault overwhelmed Dominion response capabilities. They had ships and soldiers, but they could not be everywhere at once. For the first time since the invasion began, humans were dictating the pace of battle. On Vega Prime, Wan-Sik walked calmly through the communication facility's main entrance, wearing a stolen maintenance uniform and carrying forged work orders. The Dominion guards barely glanced at him. After all, he was just another human servant doing his job. The virus upload took less than 5 minutes. Wan-Sik connected his device to the main server, watched the progress bar reach 100%, then calmly walked back toward the exit. He made it halfway across the lobby before alarms began to wail. The young man ran for the nearest emergency exit, knowing he would probably die in the next few minutes. But the virus was already spreading through the Dominion network, and that was all that mattered. He thought of his sister as energy bolts burned past his head. He thought of the 30 martyrs who had started it all. He thought of his parents dead so many years ago. Then he thought of all the humans who would live free because of what they had accomplished today. Wan-Sik made it to the exit before a Dominion soldier's weapon found its mark. He died with a smile on his face, knowing the Empire would never recover from what they had just unleashed. Across the galaxy, Dominion communication networks began to fail. Ship commanders lost contact with their fleets. Ground forces could not coordinate with orbital support. Supply convoys wandered lost through space, unable to receive updated navigation data. The Phoenix Collective had given the Empire something it had never experienced before: chaos in its own ranks. But Emperor Vorthak was not finished. Reports reached his throne world of the coordinated attacks, of the communication breakdown, of human rebels growing bolder by the day. His response was swift and terrible. The Emperor ordered the complete destruction of any world suspected of harboring significant rebel activity, not just military targets but entire planetary populations. If humans wanted to resist, he would give them extinction instead. The first world to die was Kepler 186f, a farming colony of 2 million people. The Dominion fleet arrived without warning and began orbital bombardment. Within 6 hours, the planet was a burning wasteland. The message was broadcast across every human settlement: surrender the rebels or share their fate. But something unexpected happened. Instead of surrendering, the surviving humans grew angrier, more determined, more willing to sacrifice everything for the chance at freedom on distant worlds. Humans who had never considered rebellion before began joining resistance cells. The Empire's brutality had proven that there was no safety in submission. If they were going to die anyway, they would die fighting. Elder Yoon Hai-sung, now the spiritual leader of the Phoenix Collective, captured the moment perfectly in his next broadcast to rebel cells. "The Emperor believes that fear will break us," the old man said, his voice carrying across the stars. "He is wrong. Fear is what kept us in chains for so long. Now we have seen what lies beyond fear. We have seen that we can hurt them. We can make them bleed. We can make them afraid. The 30 who died in our square lit this fire. Every human who has died since has fed the flames. Today, the Emperor learned that trying to snuff out fire by pouring fuel on it only makes it burn brighter. Captain Deho listened to the broadcast from his command center, watching as new rebel cells formed on the tactical display. Each destroyed. World created 10 new resistance movements. Each atrocity drove more humans to desperate action. The Phoenix Collective was becoming something greater than a rebellion. It was becoming a revolution that would reshape the galaxy. But they needed more than anger and determination. They needed allies. They needed ships. They needed weapons that could match Dominion technology. Most importantly, they needed to prove that the Empire could be truly hurt, not just frustrated or delayed. The fortress world of Dominax had never been attacked in the 300 years of the Empire's existence. It was Emperor Vorthak's private stronghold, where he kept his most valuable treasures and most dangerous prisoners. Captain Lee Dae-ho studied the orbital defense platforms through his ship's viewing screen. Each platform bristled with enough weapons to destroy a fleet. Energy barriers shimmered between them like deadly spider webs. It was the most heavily defended world in the galaxy. It was also exactly where they needed to strike. Thermal scans show the main facility is built into the mountain, reported Kim Ho-jin from the pilot's seat of their stolen Dominion cruiser. 3 kilometers of solid rock between us and our target. Then we go through the rock, Dae-ho said, simply. The assault on Dominax was the Phoenix Collective's most desperate gamble yet. They had brought every available ship, every trained fighter, every weapon they could gather. Not because they expected to win, but because losing here would mean the end of everything. Colonel Baek Jin-seo commanded the main battle fleet, leading 200 converted cargo ships and captured Dominion vessels against the orbital defenses. His job was to create enough chaos to cover the real mission. That mission belonged to Dae-ho's strike team. They had discovered something in the stolen intelligence from Vega Prime, something so horrifying that it had unified every human resistance cell under a single purpose. Emperor Vorthak's power source was not just technology, it was life itself. Deep beneath his fortress lay a vast facility where thousands of beings from conquered worlds were kept barely alive, their life energy slowly drained to fuel the Emperor's immortality and psychic abilities. Among the prisoners were humans from the original Earth colonies, people who had been missing for decades. The revelation had spread through the rebel network like wildfire. Moderate humans who had counseled patience suddenly demanded immediate action. Even collaborators like Merchant Captain Oh Se-hoon and administrative official Shin I-rin abandoned their posts to join the resistance. Beginning approach to the mountain face, Ho-jin announced. Defense systems are tracking us. Energy bolts began streaking past their ship. Dae-ho's converted mining vessel was heavily armored, but it could not withstand direct hits from fortress guns for long. There, pointed Park Soo-jin, now recovered from her injuries and serving as demolitions expert for the strike team. Natural. Cave system 2 kilometers down from the peak. If we can get inside? I see it, Ho-jin said, diving the ship toward the narrow opening. This is going to be tight. The cave entrance was barely wide enough for their vessel. Rock scraped against the hull as they squeezed through the opening and into the mountain's interior. Behind them, explosions lit up the cave mouth as Dominion defenders tried to collapse it. They were inside, but now they were trapped. How far to the facility? Asked Dr. Lim Yu-jin, checking her modified neural disruptor weapons. 3 kilometers through solid rock, Soo-jin replied, studying the geological scans. But I brought enough explosive charges to tunnel through a planet. The team worked with desperate efficiency. Soo-jin placed shaped charges that would carve a path through the stone. Yu-jin prepared her weapons for the fighting ahead. Choi Yoon-ji organized medical supplies knowing they would face casualties. Kim Tae-woo coordinated with the orbital battle through their communication array. The news was not good. Colonel Jin Seo reports heavy losses, he announced. The defense platforms are more heavily armed than our intelligence indicated. He can keep them busy for maybe 2 more hours. Then we better move fast, Dae-ho said. The first explosion shook the mountain, then another. Then a continuous series of blasts as Soo-jin's charges carved their way deeper into the rock. They followed the tunnel she created, rappelling down, through clouds of dust and debris. The air grew colder as they descended. Strange lights flickered in the distance and they could hear the hum of massive machinery. Life signs ahead, reported Unji, checking her medical scanner. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They emerged from the tunnel into a vast underground chamber that stretched beyond the range of their lights. Rows of crystalline pods filled the space, each one containing a living being suspended in some kind of fluid. "My God," whispered Yujin. "How long has this been going on?" "Long enough," said a familiar voice from the shadows. Elder Yoon Hae-sung stepped into the light supported by two younger humans. The old man was thin and pale, but his eyes still burned with fierce determination. "Elder Yoon!" Daeho could barely believe what he was seeing. "You died in the massacre. I saw your body." "You saw what the Emperor wanted you to see," Yoon replied. "He kept me alive along with others from that day. We were to be examples of what happened to rebels. Instead, you became something else," said another voice. A woman emerged from between the pods, carrying a weapon that looked like modified Dominion technology. "Commander Park Dong-hyun," the woman introduced herself. "Former Earth Defense Force. We have been organizing the prisoners for months waiting for rescue." Daeho looked around the chamber with new understanding. These were not just victims kept alive for their energy. They were potential allies, thousands of experienced fighters from across the galaxy, all with excellent reason to hate Emperor Vorthak. "Can you free them all?" he asked. "The release mechanism is in the central control room," Dong-hyun replied. "But it is heavily guarded. We tried to take it twice and lost dozens of people each time." "Show me," Daeho ordered. The control room sat in the center of the chamber, a tower of black metal and glowing crystals that rose from floor to ceiling. Dominion soldiers patrolled its perimeter, their weapons ready for trouble they knew was coming. Dr. Yujin studied the energy readings from the facility's power core. "The entire system is designed around draining life force," she explained. "If we disrupt it suddenly, the feedback could kill everyone connected to the network." "Or it could free them," Dong-hyun suggested. "We have been studying this place for months. The Emperor's immortality depends on a steady flow of energy from his victims. If we could reverse that flow, send all that stored life energy back to its original owners," Yujin finished. "It might work, but the surge would also destroy the facility and everything in it." "Including us," Sujin pointed out. "Including the Emperor," Daeho countered. "If he is connected to the network when we reverse it, the feedback will hit him hardest of all." They developed their plan quickly. Yujin would modify her neural disruptors to interface with the alien technology. Dong-hyun's prisoner army would assault the control room from one direction, while Daeho's team attacked from another. Sujin would plant explosives to bring down the chamber if the energy reversal failed to work. It was still a suicide mission. But now they had hope of taking Emperor Vorthak with them. The battle for the control room was fierce, but brief. Dominion soldiers, caught between two attacking forces, could not hold their positions. Within minutes, Yujin was connecting her equipment to the facility's main power core. "Energy flow is reversing," she reported. "Massive feedback building in the system." Throughout the chamber, the crystalline pods began to crack open. Thousands of prisoners stumbled out, weak but alive. Many had been held captive for decades, but they all remembered what freedom felt like. "The Emperor knows what we are doing," Taewoo announced, monitoring communication intercepts. "His personal guard is mobilizing. They will be here in minutes." "Let them come," said Elder Yoon, picking up a fallen soldier's weapon. "We have been waiting for this moment for a very long time." The fighting that followed was unlike anything in the rebellion's history. Freed prisoners joined the battle with weapons taken from fallen guards. Humans who had been enemies of the Empire for generations fought alongside newcomers who had just discovered their hatred. Emperor Vorthak arrived at the head of his elite guard, expecting to find a small rebel force. Instead, he faced an army of the people he had tortured and enslaved. "Impossible," the alien ruler snarled, his forearms gesturing as he tried to draw power from the failing energy network. "You are insects. You are nothing. We are the people you tried to break," Daeho replied, standing with his weapon aimed at the Emperor's heart. "We are the fire you lit when you killed 30 innocent souls. The battle that decided the fate of the galaxy lasted less than an hour. Emperor Vorthak, weakened by the loss of his stolen life energy, fell to a combination of human fury and Dr. Eugen's neural disruptor technology. His death sent shockwaves through the Dominion command structure across hundreds of worlds, but the victory came at a terrible cost. The energy feedback destroyed most of the facility and killed dozens of the rebels who had made it possible. Kim. Taewoo died at his communication post, ensuring that news of the Emperor's death reached every resistance cell in the galaxy. Choi Yoonji died treating wounded prisoners, working until the collapsing chamber claimed her life. As Daeho and the survivors escaped through the tunnel Sujin had carved, they could hear the mountain falling down behind them. The Emperor's fortress was being consumed by the very power he had stolen from others. Above them, the orbital battle had turned as news of Vorthak's death spread through the Dominion fleet. Without their immortal leader, many alien officers lost the will to fight. Some surrendered. Others fled to distant parts of the galaxy. The death of Emperor Vorthak sent shockwaves across the galaxy that reached far beyond human worlds. On the crystalline planet of Keth Prime, the insectoid workers in the deep mines had heard whispers about the human rebellion for months. When news arrived that the Emperor himself had fallen to human weapons, something stirred in their compound eyes that had been dormant for generations. Hope. Within days, the Catherine workers had seized control of 3 major mining facilities. Their crystalline bodies, resistant to energy weapons, gave them advantages the Dominion had never expected to face in combat. On the hive worlds of the Morven cluster, similar uprisings began as news spread through the insect colonies. The Morven had been slaves even longer than humanity, but they remembered when their worlds were free. Admiral Lee Dae-ho watched these developments from the bridge of his flagship, a converted Dominion battlecruiser they had renamed Phoenix Rising. The rebellion that started with 30 human deaths was becoming something much larger. Incoming message from the Catherine leaders, reported his new communications officer, Yoon Jae-sung, Elder Yoon's grandson, who had survived the massacre on Dominax. They want to coordinate joint operations against remaining Dominion strongholds. Put them through, Daeho ordered. The holographic display showed a figure that looked like living crystal arranged in roughly humanoid shape. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Admiral Daeho, the Catherine said, I am Speaker Veltar of the liberated mining worlds. We have heard of your great victory. We wish to join your fight. The fight belongs to all of us now, Daeho replied. What do you need? Ships, weapons, coordination. Our people are strong, but we lack the technology to strike at distant targets. Similar requests came from dozens of other species across the galaxy. The Morvan offered their swarming tactics and hive mind coordination. The Zilani provided their expertise in stealth technology. Even some smaller human colonies that had avoided the rebellion now wanted to contribute. What emerged was something unprecedented in galactic history, a voluntary alliance of species united by their shared hatred of oppression. They called it the Free Worlds Alliance, and it grew stronger every day. But the Dominion was not finished. Governor Kexmore of the Centauri sector had declared himself the new emperor and gathered the loyalty of 60 star systems. His fleet was smaller than Vorthak's had been, but it was still formidable. Governor Hivetal controlled the industrial worlds of the Outer Rim, producing new weapons and ships to crush the rebellion. She had allied herself with several other surviving governors to create a rival empire. Most dangerous of all was Fleet Admiral Gorthak, who commanded the Dominion's reserve fleet from a mobile base that moved between star systems. He had sworn to continue Vorthak's mission of enslaving the galaxy, and his forces struck without warning at rebel positions. The Free Worlds Alliance faced enemies on multiple fronts while trying to hold together an alliance of species that had never worked together before. We need a unified command structure, argued Colonel Bayek Jin Seo, now serving as the Alliance's chief military strategist. Too many different species with different tactics. We are getting in each other's way. But we cannot simply impose human leadership on everyone, countered Lee Hi-Rim, who had been elected as the Alliance's diplomatic coordinator. The Catherine and Morven have their own ways of fighting. We need to find a system that uses everyone's strengths. The solution came from an unexpected source, Dr. Lim Yu Jin, whose neural disruptor technology had evolved into something far more sophisticated. What if we could share thoughts directly? She proposed during a strategy meeting. Not mind control, but genuine communication between different species. The Kethrin think in crystal harmonics. The Morven use chemical signals. Humans rely on verbal language, but underneath we all want the same thing. Her new invention was called the Unity Interface. It allowed beings from different species to share tactical information instantaneously, creating coordinated strategies that played to each group's natural advantages. The first test came during the Battle of Rigel 7. Fleet Admiral Gorthak had assembled 200 ships to destroy the Alliance's main supply base. His forces outnumbered the defenders 3-1, and he expected an easy victory. Instead, he faced something no Dominion commander had ever encountered: perfect coordination between multiple species. Human ships provided long-range firepower and tactical flexibility. Kethrin vessels, grown rather than built, shrugged off energy weapons while closing to melee range. Morven swarm fighters overwhelmed enemy point defenses through sheer numbers and hive mind coordination. Enemy fleet is breaking formation, reported scanner operator Kim Min-woo. They cannot adapt to our combined tactics. Admiral Dae-ho watched the battle unfold on his tactical display with something approaching satisfaction. The Unity interface allowed him to coordinate with Kethrin speaker Veltar and Morven Queen Zixara, as if they were all part of the same mind. Kethrin heavy cruisers, focus on the enemy flagship, he commanded. Morven swarms, hit their engine. Clusters, human long-range units provide covering fire. The battle lasted 6 hours and ended with Fleet Admiral Gorthak's complete defeat. More importantly, it proved that the Free Worlds Alliance could function as a unified military force. But Emperor Vorthak's legacy was not limited to his surviving governors. The tyrant's death had unleashed something else into the galaxy, the accumulated life force of billions of beings he had drained over the centuries. That energy had to go somewhere when the facility on Dominax was destroyed. It went into the people who had been present when the system overloaded. Dae-ho first noticed it during the battle planning for their next operation. He could sense the emotional states of his officers without looking at them. He could predict enemy movements with uncanny accuracy. It was as if he could feel the intentions of everyone around him. Similar changes were happening to other survivors of the Dominax assault. Park Soo-jin could instinctively know the weak points of any structure she examined. Commander Park Dong-hyun could coordinate troop movements with inhuman precision. Dr. Yu Jin theorized that the energy release had awakened latent psychic abilities in the humans exposed to it. "We are becoming something new," she explained. "Not superhuman, but more than we were before." The enhanced abilities gave the Alliance a crucial advantage in their war against the remaining Dominion forces, but they also created new problems. Some of the enhanced humans are losing perspective, reported Lee Hi-rim during a council meeting. They see themselves as superior to unenhanced people. There have been incidents. "We cannot become what we fought against," Elder Yoon warned. He had also survived Dominax and gained the ability to sense truth in what people said. "The moment we start seeing ourselves as naturally superior to others, we become the next empire that needs to be overthrown." The warning proved prophetic. When Captain Nam Jin-ho, an enhanced human commanding a battle group in the Outer Rim, began making decisions without consulting Alliance leadership. He justified his actions by claiming his enhanced intuition made him more qualified to lead than normal beings. "I can see patterns that others cannot," he told the council when summoned to explain his conduct. "My abilities let me protect people more effectively than democratic debate ever could." "That is exactly what Emperor Vorthak used to say," Dae-ho replied coldly. "The Unity interface exists so we can share our insights with others, not impose our will on them." The incident led to the creation of the enhancement protocols, rules governing how psychically enhanced individuals could use their abilities in Alliance service. The protocols emphasized collaboration over dominance, and several enhanced humans, who refused to follow them, were removed from command positions. It was a necessary step, but it also revealed how easily the Alliance could fracture along new lines of division. The real test came when they located Emperor Vorthak's throne ship. The massive vessel had been drifting through space since its master's death, its crew of fanatic loyalists refusing to surrender or join any of the breakaway governors. Intelligence reports suggested they were planning something catastrophic, a final strike that would destroy several Alliance worlds as revenge for the Emperor's death. "The ship is the size of a small moon," Admiral Deho told the assembled fleet commanders. "Its weapons could glass entire planets. We cannot let it reach any populated system." "But storming it would cost thousands of lives," pointed out Catherine Speaker Veltar. "My people are willing to make that sacrifice, but perhaps there is another way." The solution came from an unexpected alliance. Han Ji-won, the former diplomat, who had provided crucial intelligence during the early rebellion, made contact with a faction of aliens aboard the throne ship. Not all of the Emperor's servants had been fanatic loyalists. Some had served only out of fear, and Vorthak's death had freed them from that terror. "They want to surrender," she reported, "but they are afraid the fanatics will kill them if they try to rebel. They need our help to take control of the ship from within." The operation required precise coordination between Alliance forces and rebel sympathizers inside the throne ship. It also required trusting aliens who had served their oppressor for decades. "Some of our people will not accept alien allies," warned Colonel Jinseo. The final battle of the war took place not on a distant battlefield, but in the council chambers of the former throne ship. Admiral Lee Dae-ho stood before representatives of 47 different species, all of them former subjects of the Dominion Empire. Some had been slaves for generations. Others had been willing collaborators who now sought redemption. A few had even been middle-level administrators in the Emperor's government. All of them were tired of war. "The last of the breakaway governors has surrendered," reported Lee Hiram, reading from a list of recent victories. "Governor Kexmore's fleet was defeated at the Battle of Wolf 359. Governor Hivetal's industrial worlds have declared independence and joined the Alliance. The Dominion Empire is officially dead." Cheers erupted from some of the delegates, but Dae-ho noticed that others remained quiet. Victory in war was only the first step. Now came the harder task of building something to replace what they had destroyed. "The question before us," he continued, "is what kind of galaxy we want to create. We could go our separate ways, each species returning to their own worlds. We could divide up the former empire's territory among ourselves, or we could try to build something new." Catherine Speaker Veltar rose from her crystalline seat. "My people remember what it was like before the Dominion," she said, her voice ringing like distant bells. "Each world stood alone. When the Empire came, we fell one by one because we had no allies. We cannot repeat that mistake." Morven Queen Zixara clicked her agreement. The Hive worlds learned the same lesson. Unity or extinction. There is no middle path. But not everyone agreed. "Why should the Zilani submit to another galactic government?" demanded Ambassador Croyth, whose people had only recently joined the Alliance. "We have our own worlds, our own ways. Let us rule ourselves." "And when the next empire rises?" asked Elder Yoon Haesung, now serving as the Alliance's moral conscience despite his advanced age. "When the next tyrant decides to conquer the galaxy piece by piece, will the Zilani stand alone again?" The debate continued for hours. Some species wanted a strong central government that could prevent future wars. Others demanded complete autonomy for their worlds. A few suggested dividing the galaxy into spheres of influence. It was Dr. Lim Yu-jin who proposed the solution that would reshape galactic civilization. "What if we created a system based on principles rather than power?" she suggested. "Not a government that rules over everyone, but a set of agreements that everyone chooses to follow." Her idea became the foundation of the Memorial Accords, named after the 30 humans whose deaths had sparked the rebellion that freed the galaxy. The Accords were not a traditional government, but something entirely new. They established basic principles that all member worlds agreed to follow. No being could be enslaved by another, disputes would be resolved through negotiation rather than war, and any world could leave the Alliance if its people chose to do So most importantly, the Accords created the Guardian Fleet, a combined military force drawn from all member species. The fleet's mission was not to conquer or control, but to protect any world threatened by would-be tyrants. "We have learned that freedom must be defended," Deho explained to the assembled delegates. "Not through conquest, but through cooperation. The Guardian Fleet will ensure that no single power can ever dominate the galaxy again." The signing ceremony took place on Kepler 442b, in the square where the 30 martyrs had died. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered around a simple monument carved with the names of those who had given their lives for freedom. Song Minna's name was first on the list, followed by the other 29 victims of Emperor Vorthax's brutality. Below them were thousands more names, rebels and freedom fighters from across the galaxy, who had died to bring this moment about. As each delegate signed the Accords, they placed a flower or small token at the base of the monument. Kethryn crystals reflected the light of distant stars. Morvan pheromone markers created complex scents that told stories of sacrifice and hope. Human roses bloomed in soil watered by the blood of martyrs. But the ceremony was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. A small shuttle landed at the edge of the square, and from it emerged a figure that made every human present reach for their weapons. It was a Dominion alien, one of the same species as the late Emperor Vorthak, wearing the tattered remains of an imperial uniform. "Peace," the alien said, raising all 4 arms in surrender. "I come seeking redemption, not conflict." The alien identified herself as Commander Yexara, former captain of one of the Emperor's prison ships. She had witnessed the liberation of the facility on Dominax and seen the consequences of the Empire's cruelty. "I spent decades enforcing my people's rule over yours," she told the assembly. "I cannot undo that harm, but I wish to help ensure it never happens again. I offer my knowledge of Imperial tactics and hidden weapons caches to the Alliance." The offer created an immediate debate among the delegates. Many wanted to reject her outright, or even execute her for her crimes. Others argued that accepting former enemies was essential to building lasting peace. "It was Elder Yoon who broke the deadlock. This woman committed terrible crimes," he said, his voice carrying across the silent square. "But so did many of us in smaller ways. Some humans collaborated with the Empire. Some profited from the suffering of their neighbors. If we exclude everyone who served the tyrants, we exclude the possibility of redemption." "The 30 who died here were not saints," he continued. "They were ordinary people who made an extraordinary choice when confronted with evil. They chose to resist, knowing it would cost them their lives. Now we must make our own choice. Do we build our new galaxy on revenge, or on the hope that anyone can change?" The vote was close, but Commander Yexara was accepted into the Alliance as its first former Imperial officer. She would spend the rest of her life working to locate and disable hidden Dominion weapons, preventing them from falling into the hands of future tyrants. Her acceptance established a precedent that would define the Alliance for generations to come. Redemption was always possible for those willing to work for it. Years passed and the Alliance grew stronger. Human colonies spread across the galaxy, but not as conquerors. They came as teachers, engineers, and farmers, helping other species rebuild worlds devastated by Imperial rule. The stubborn determination that had made them impossible to fully enslave now made them natural leaders in the work of reconstruction. Dr. Yu Jin's Unity interface technology evolved into something even more remarkable: a galactic communication network that allowed instant dialogue between any member worlds. Disputes that might once have led to war were resolved through negotiation, facilitated by shared understanding. The enhanced humans who had gained psychic abilities on Dominax became the Alliance's diplomatic corps, using their heightened empathy to bridge differences between species. But they remained bound by the enhancement protocols, serving as facilitators rather than rulers. Captain Deho, now Grand Admiral of the Guardian Fleet, established his headquarters on a space station built around the wreckage of Emperor Vorthak's personal flagship. The station served as both a reminder of past tyranny and a symbol of hope for the future. From his office overlooking the memorial garden that had been planted in the station's central hub, he could see children of a dozen different species playing together. Human, Kethrin, Morven, and Zelani youngsters chased each other through groves of flowering trees, their laughter echoing through corridors that had once carried the screams of torture victims. Status report, he requested from his aide. Commander Park So-jin, daughter of the legendary demolitions expert, who had died in the final assault on Dominax. 3 new worlds have requested membership in the Alliance, she reported. The Outer Rim survey team has discovered 2 previously unknown species who want to establish diplomatic contact, and the Guardian fleet successfully prevented a war between the Kethrin mining clans and the Morven agricultural worlds by mediating their water rights dispute. Any threat pirates in the Vega sector, but nothing the local security forces cannot handle. A few isolated worlds still refuse contact with the Alliance, but they are not bothering anyone. And there are reports of strange signals from beyond the galactic rim, but Survey Command thinks they are natural phenomena. Daeho nodded, satisfied. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was free. No single power dominated the stars. No species knelt in bondage to another. The dream that had died with 30 innocent people in a colonial square had become reality across thousands of worlds. He walked to the memorial wall in his office, where holographic images of the fallen rotated in silent tribute. Songmina smiled at him from the display, frozen in a moment of joy from before the Empire's boot came down on human dreams. "We did it, little sister," he whispered. "We lit the fire that freed the stars outside his window." A convoy of ships departed the station bound for a newly discovered world where refugees from the Empire's collapse were struggling to build new lives. The lead ship carried teachers and doctors, engineers and farmers. The vessels bore the symbol of the Free Worlds Alliance, a rising phoenix surrounded by stars. The fire that had begun with 30 deaths continued to burn, but now it burned as a light that guided lost travelers home and warned tyrants that their reign was ending before it could begin.